I want to talk about the Toyota dichotomy. I will admit I've coined this term. I want to start by saying that I love Toyotas. I think they're awesome trucks. I'm going to get a couple of quick, what would I call them, hot takes out of the way before we move on. I don't think that Toyota is very reliable anymore compared to how reliable they used to be. I think that classic Toyotas are incredibly durable. And I don't believe, here's another hot take moment for you, I don't believe that Toyota has built a reliable vehicle that meets the standard of their classics since roughly 2004. I think that EPA standards are incredibly tough for all brands to match. And I think that Toyota fell victim just like everybody else. So why is this an issue if everybody, as in all manufacturers, are having this problem? Why am I singling out Toyota? Well, one, because they're functioning off of a brand that they built 20 years ago, right? Or really it started 40 years ago, because in the 70s and 80s, Toyota had this perfect model of let's just build vehicles that are simple, cheap to repair, have lots of parts interchangeability, so it's easy for people like you and I to be able to repair them, because we don't have, with parts interchangeability, we're talking about one alternator fitting 6 different models of Toyota, which is great. That reduces the cost of parts. It reduces the cost of the initial build, as in like the vehicle you buy from the OEM. The dilemma came along when they had to try to adjust. And the reason I'm singling Toyota out here is because they're functioning off of this brand and still claiming, and I think people still assume, that Toyota is like the most reliable. When I believe in reality, they are just about as reliable as everything else, because of the unfortunate standards that the EPA puts on them. We need to protect the environment, so it's positive that we're doing what we can. But I think that for consumers, this has been harmful in the vehicles that we can get and how reliable they can be. So the dichotomy here comes in when, or the paradox, we'll call it a paradox. We'll call it the Toyota paradox. The paradox comes in when folks like you and I look at Toyotas and say, that's a super reliable car. I think that I would like to buy one of those. The unfortunate part is when you brand your vehicles, when you market them as being super reliable, lots of people want to buy them. And so the unfortunate part is for people like you and I who would want to buy a Toyota is that increases price, because with demand going up, price has to go up as well. When price goes up, it makes the vehicles less and less attainable. A good example is the 79 Series Land Cruiser. 4-door Land Cruiser with a tray back bed that you can purchase in Australia. You can't purchase this here, but you can purchase it in other markets. That vehicle is a farm truck. It is crazy reliable, really, really awesome. Like, I would love to have one here in the States because they're very simple. They have been made more advanced though. So the newest versions of the 79 have more things. The latest version has a 4-cylinder turbo. I don't know much about that engine. I don't know much about 79 series, to be honest, other than what I can hear secondhand. But I would love to, I would love to be able to get one nonetheless. But the 79 series Land Cruiser is now in Australia like over $100,000 car. It's a $130,000 car. That's Australian, so here that's say 40% less in USD. But that car is an awesome vehicle, but you're also going to pay a huge amount of money for it, and you're also going to wait like 2 years because the demand is so high that they can't even build them fast enough in the factories that they're producing these in. This is the paradox. Toyotas are very reliable, some of them, especially the older ones. The new ones, unfortunately, the newest vehicles, I don't think are any more reliable than any other manufacturer. I think that every manufacturer has good and bad models. Toyota is not immune to that. I think that they have just as many good and bad models. The hard part is they're selling you on we are reliable when they may not. They may not actually be the newest ones. And then let's say, okay, I want to buy an adventure vehicle or an off-road vehicle, or I just want a reliable vehicle to drive around. Maybe I'll look at an older Toyota. Maybe I can buy an older Toyota and I'll have something that is reliable. I'm willing to give up some of the newer creature comforts, right? The lane keeping, things like that. The hard part is those vehicles are so popular because they are simple and reliable that you're going to end up paying way too much money. If you were to try to buy, let's say, a four-door 2002 Tacoma, even if we look past options like whether you would like a manual or automatic, or whether it's just an, extra cab maybe instead of a four-door, or maybe you only need a two-wheel drive, you don't need a four-wheel drive. I think the harsh reality is that you're going to end up spending on a car that is 25 almost years old. You're going to end up spending somewhere north of $10,000 or $15,000, and it's probably going to have 200 or plus thousand miles on it. And in comparison, other vehicles of the same generation that could be just as reliable will probably cost you half of that. So you'll probably pay maybe $7,000 for, I wouldn't recommend a Chevy from that timeline just because they had bad transmissions, and I probably wouldn't recommend a Ford from that timeline either because they had some timing chain issues, but there are other great options. You have Mazda pickups, you have Nissan pickups, you have a variety of other Japanese or domestic options that can fill a lot of the same boxes and are not going to cost you so much money for a 25-year-old truck. I think the paradox here is that folks who maybe just don't have all the information, they end up in a situation where they tell themselves, I need an old Toyota because that is what is popular and that is what is going to be reliable. And then you go to look at buying an old Toyota. Let's say you want to buy an 80 series Land Cruiser. I don't know if I've seen an 80 series Land Cruiser that wasn't being imported. I don't know if I've seen like a domestic market left-hand drive 80 series Land Cruiser with less than 200,000 miles on it in probably 5 years. Just a listing, right? I mean, I'm just like you guys. I watch Facebook Marketplace all the time. And so you're going to spend, let's say you spend, I would say a mediocre optioned, probably non-triple locked and definitely gas domestic 80 series Land Cruiser is going to cost you at least 10 grand. And it will have 220, 250,000 miles. That's probably not the right move. If you're looking at something purely from an pragmatic economic standpoint of, I want to find a reliable car that will get me to the places I want to go. Maybe you want to go snowboarding. Maybe you want to be able to go camping. Maybe you want to go down to the beach to go surfing. I think there are other great four-wheel drive SUVs that are available that you're going to spend maybe, half or better the money on. And even if they have close to equivalent miles, right? Like, let's say what would be a good competitor to the 80 series? Maybe like a Nissan Armada could probably fit all of the same, check all of the same boxes, other than it's not solid axle. So that's not the best choice. But there are other models that have four-wheel drive, have solid axles, and have somewhat modern features, but are classic vehicles that you can probably pick up for, $4,000 to $6,000. So you're now spending about half of what you would on an 80 series Land Cruiser. And even if you have to input, let's say, a couple $1,000s to make that other vehicle with less miles as reliable or as usable for your use case, I think you're better off, because you're going to end up having less money and more enjoyment and pleasure. I know for a fact that this is going to frustrate the Toyota crowd. Don't worry, I will be sure to pick on every manufacturer for how silly they are sometimes, because automotive manufacturers are very silly. But I also want to acknowledge that I believe, like I said in the beginning, really regulation is what caused this. We can't really blame at the end of the day, because I do believe that every manufacturer sets out to make the most reliable and most cost-effective vehicle that they can. I think that they just get lost along the way. Sometimes you get some rogue engineers who are like, hey, we're gonna add all this whiz-bang 3000 stuff, and it doesn't work. And then sometimes you just get, silly regulation that comes in and says, well, you gotta have 18 airbags, right? And none of that's bad, right? People want to survive when they have a car accident. I've been hit with an airbag. It was a whole lot better than hitting the windshield as I was a passenger in this vehicle that was in an accident. But at some point, we have to figure out how to be able to balance cost and benefit. Can it check all the boxes? Can it be reliable? Can it be enjoyable? Can I feel good about driving it, right? Because there's the Type 2 cool, which is like, I just want it to look cool and be fun. And that's totally okay. I'm a photographer for a living, so things have to look cool, or I don't want to have it. But I know that the Toyota community will not take this well. I want to assure you, I will pick on other brands, and I want to say again, I am a huge fan of Toyotas. I just think that a lot of Toyota owners end up spending way more money than is necessary to have what they perceive to be a reliable vehicle, but in reality, it's a clapped out 250,000 mile 80 series that is falling apart. That's my final statement. I spoke my piece. Let me know what you think in the comments.